When a mysterious Civil War photograph emerged from a forgotten attic trunk, no one expected the chilling revelation hiding in plain sight. 5 soldiers frozen in time, a Confederate revolver pressed against a comrade's temple. But the true horror awaited when experts zoomed in on that haunting 1863 group shot and saw something no one expected. Ella Whitaker's phone wobbled in her latex-gloved fingers as the camera flash fired across a dust-choked attic. As a volunteer for the Harrisburg Estate Sale Network, she had been tasked with cataloging the contents of the late Miriam Lockwood's Victorian house. Most boxes were predictable: doilies, mourning brooches, brittle letters. But at the bottom of one trunk she spotted a faded velvet case stamped Bedgery Photographic Parlor, Montreal. Inside rested the tintype, lightly hand-tinted by some long-forgotten studio artist. In the glow appeared 5 Civil War soldiers frozen mid-swagger, 2 lounging on a trunk, 3 looming behind. The tallest leveled a revolver at his comrade's temple, a grin threatening to split his mustache. In that instant, the line between battlefield bravado and something darker blurred. She posted the image to a niche Facebook forum of relic hunters, expecting a handful of nice find emojis. Instead, comments detonated within minutes. Museum docents, living history reenactors, even a retired naval armorer elbowed into the thread, arguing over the pistol's make and the men's mismatched kepis. The photo, they agreed, could date to early 1863, but certain details refused to line up. Coat buttons out of regulation, a French-style forage cap, and most unsettling, that polished 6-shooter pressed against a friend's skull as though some private dare were underway. Everyone seemed to agree that the pistol was the strangest detail in the photo, but nobody could explain why. 24 hours and 400 shares later, Smithsonian curator Dr. Lionel West requested a high-resolution scan. His terse email ended with the sentence everyone would soon repeat: Mysterious Civil War 1863 group shot. Ella barely slept that night. By late morning, her phone buzzed. Smithsonian's Dr. West was calling. "Miss Whitaker, I assume?" West's voice, deep and patient, crackled on the line. "I've received your image. Intriguing is an understatement. I appreciate your call," she stammered. "Everyone keeps focusing on the pistol. They are saying it looks wrong." West paused, voice lowering conspiratorially. "It does indeed. Would you bring the original to our lab tomorrow? I'd prefer not to alarm you, but—" He trailed off ominously, then added quietly, "Some of my colleagues turned pale when they zoomed in at the gun. The weapon is exceedingly rare. A Lamat revolver." Ella wrote the word down. "What does that mean?" "It means," West said deliberately, "someone posed with a Confederate firearm deep behind Union lines in 1863. In a northern studio, which makes your photo astonishingly improbable. The Smithsonian's forensic examination took place the following morning in a sterile basement laboratory. White-coated technicians examined every detail of the mysterious 1863 photograph under ultraviolet lights and high-powered microscopes." Ella, tense and uncertain, stood silently observing as specialists debated vigorously, voices echoing around her. A firearms expert named Captain Roger Daly, recently retired from Naval Intelligence, ran his fingertip across the photo's glossy surface. "This is without question a Lamat revolver," Daly confirmed. His voice carried the weight of experience, eyes narrowed with intense concentration. "Designed by Jean-Alexandre Lamat of New Orleans. 9-shot cylinder. Secondary shotgun barrel. Rare enough among Confederates, among Union soldiers, virtually unheard of. Considered carefully. Authentic period piece undoubtedly. The positioning, though," he exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Why would a Union soldier pose so casually with a prized Confederate sidearm, a luxury few Confederates themselves could afford?" He magnified the pistol grip. Intricate scrollwork emerged, tiny fleur-de-lis engravings visible under intense magnification. Daly leaned back slowly, rubbing his temples. "This particular model, the scrollwork indicates elite craftsmanship, possibly French-made for Confederate officers or spies." Ella's stomach tightened, sensing deeper implications. So this revolver belonged to someone important. Important and dangerous, Daly murmured gravely. Whoever held this Lamont had direct connections, perhaps even covert alliances, well above ordinary soldiers. Ella shifted uneasily. The lab technician beside them cleared her throat, glancing anxiously toward the door as Dr. West entered briskly. Urgency in every step. The auction house called, West announced tersely. They're claiming custody of the photo based on the fact that it was found in a private house they are now managing. Without clearer provenance, we'll lose access to the original in a number of weeks. We need more evidence, Daly countered urgently, especially regarding ownership of this revolver. Dr. West exhaled, frustrated. I spoke to a historian specializing in covert Confederate operations in the North. He confirmed rumors of espionage activities and clandestine arms smuggling into Canada throughout the war, particularly around Montreal. Montreal, Ella finished breathlessly. The studio stamp on the photo said Bajuri, Montreal. West froze, eyes sharpening. That changes things significantly. Canadian studios were known to host covert Confederate operatives. This could prove a legitimate espionage photo, a historical revelation. The owner of this revolver could have been undercover behind enemy lines, and that fact alone makes your discovery monumental. Ella's heartbeat quickened, excitement and anxiety entwined. They were so close, yet each new revelation only deepened uncertainty. West leaned closer, voice dropping lower, barely audible amid lab murmurs. Miss Whitaker, whoever brought that revolver into a Union-controlled region was either daringly brave or incredibly reckless, perhaps both. Captain Daly spoke quietly from beside them. The deeper mystery remains unanswered. Who exactly owned a Lamont revolver in Union blue in 1863? That, I fear, is the question which, once answered, might rewrite what we think we know about the war itself. Ella stared at the frozen image of soldiers trapped in that eerie pose, suddenly aware she'd only scratched the surface of an astonishing secret still hidden in the shadows of this mysterious 1863 photograph. Days stretched into weeks, each new dawn pulling Ella deeper into the tangled web surrounding the enigmatic soldier portrait. After the Smithsonian's initial confirmation of the revolver as a genuine Lamont, a weapon that defied conventional wisdom of Union and Confederate lines, Ella expected clarity. Instead, intrigue tightened. Late one evening, Dr. West summoned Ella and Captain Daly back to the lab. A scholar from Canada named François Beauchamp had arrived unexpectedly, holding archival ledgers and yellowed theater posters. I traced your studio stamp, Beauchamp explained, unfolding fragile paper on the desk. His fingers trembled slightly. Bajuri was indeed a photographic studio, but only briefly operational in Montreal between November 1862 and June 1863. Ella's breath quickened, sharing an uncertain glance with Daly. Is that significant? Exceedingly so, Beauchamp continued. In early 1863, Montreal became a clandestine meeting ground for Confederate operatives. Bajuri specifically was rumored to discreetly photograph agents and sympathizers for identification purposes. Portraits to confirm loyalties, espionage. Bamp nodded solemnly, more than suggesting. Consider the revolver and location. It seems likely your sepia group photograph captured Confederate agents posing ironically in Union uniforms. It might have been an inside joke or a warning. Ella shivered, glancing again at the unsettling image, the mocking grin, the casual yet menacing stance. The scene took on a chilling new meaning. Could history's veneer conceal such startling truths? Then Bamp withdrew another document even more delicate than the others. He hesitated, meeting West's cautious gaze before speaking. I found theater records, he said, carefully unfolding a faded playbill. In Montreal, early March 1863, performing Shakespeare's Richard III, Mr. John Wilkes Booth. A stunned silence enveloped the room, fractured only by Di's startled intake of breath. West reached out, tracing the name on the brittle paper with disbelief. John Wilkes Booth, Lincoln's assassin, Ella whispered numbly. Her skin prickled with sudden dread. You think he visited Bajur's studio? Entirely plausible, Beauchamp confirmed. Booth openly expressed Confederate sympathies, and Montreal was a documented haven for agents moving between Canada and the Confederacy. Booth himself, though American, had ties there. It's conceivable he was photographed clandestinely, perhaps intentionally obscured among soldiers for plausible deniability. Captain Daly straightened sharply. Booth's initials, JWB. Have you checked? West nodded hurriedly, turning to his assistant. Prepare the infrared imaging equipment. Check uniforms and accessories again, closer. Look for stitched initials, markings, anything. Hours later, beneath infrared illumination, hidden details slowly surfaced. West's technician suddenly leaned back, alarmed. I found something, he stammered. Carefully, he magnified the forage cap worn by the soldier pointing the revolver. Inside the brim, tiny embroidered letters glowed softly beneath ultraviolet exposure. JWB. The letters shimmered ominously. 3 silent accusations burned into faded fabric. Ella's pulse quickened. JWB, she repeated softly. John Wilkes Booth. Captain Daly pressed his hand to his forehead, stunned into silence. West stood frozen, visibly pale under the lab's unforgiving fluorescent lights. Ella remembered the auction house skeptics' warning. Could it all be an elaborate forgery? Dr. West anticipated her thought. We must tread carefully, he cautioned gravely. A claim this monumental will provoke skepticism, even hostility. Until forensic dating confirms the embroideries, age doubt remains possible. Ella nodded anxiously. But why fake something so obscure, so subtle? Dye's jaw clenched. Precisely why it's alarming. The subtler the forgery, the more convincing. We must confirm definitively. A week of agonizing silence passed, while labs conducted extensive chemical analyses on ink, fabric, and photographic materials. Results trickled back slowly, each report heightening suspense. The cloth threads and ink dated unmistakably to the early 1860s, deepening rather than relieving tension. Ella's initial hope for clarity frayed with every uncertain hour. Amid growing fears, she sought solace in historical archives, seeking anything connecting Booth conclusively to the 1863 Montreal tour. Late into an anxious night, scrolling through digitized medical journals, her screen froze on one seemingly inconsequential historical footnote. During Booth's Canadian tour, a Montreal newspaper reported a backstage accident. Booth suffered a severe injury to his right hand after a dramatic stage fall during Richard Brimming. With hushed voices and barely concealed anticipation, Ella stood quietly at the back, her pulse racing as Dr. West directed technicians to prepare. The high-resolution zoom-in. Daly, Bosch, and several government officials watched grimly, tension etched deep into their faces. Proceed, West ordered softly. The sepia group photograph filled the screen again, growing steadily sharper. Pixels realigned, textures crystallized, threads of uniforms emerged, expressions clarified. The revolver's ominous barrel pressed coldly against its target's temple. Ella's eyes darted anxiously across details, now vivid enough to reveal every line, every subtle nuance once hidden in obscurity. West spoke firmly. Overlay Booth's known tintype portrait from 1865. A second photo appeared ghostly and faint, then sharpened in seconds. Facial recognition software began mapping landmarks, eyes, cheekbones, jawline, charting key points for comparison. Silence thickened unbearably as the images drifted closer, superimposing. Ella's heartbeat thundered in her ears, her breath shallow and rapid. Initiate matching sequence, West instructed quietly. The software ran calculations, tracing thousands of subtle facial contours, then delivered its verdict. A blinking number appeared, 84% match. Booth's unmistakable face stared back at them defiantly, from within a Union uniform. Eyes narrowed slightly, lips twisted into a cryptic smile. History's most notorious assassin had hidden in plain sight, documented and immortalized in a photograph. never meant to surface. Daly rubbed a hand wearily across his face. This is disturbing. This photograph challenges everything. Booth infiltrated Union lines, posed mockingly with enemy soldiers, confident enough, or arrogant enough, to preserve the evidence. Ella noticed West's usually composed demeanor had slipped. His fingers trembled lightly as he reached to pause the screen, holding that unsettling portrait frozen in time. "Gentlemen, Miss Whitaker," West began heavily, voice strained. "We've discovered something extraordinary and profoundly unsettling. And from this moment forward, nothing we know about John Wilkes Booth or the Civil War itself will remain unchanged." In the weeks that followed, the Smithsonian struggled to contain the explosive discovery. Historians fiercely debated. Conferences erupted into contentious arguments and academic papers flooded journals, each author grappling with the profound implications of Booth's secret presence behind Union lines. Ella watched from afar as the storm unfolded, relieved but unsettled by the consequences. She occasionally met descendants of Miriam Lockwood, the photo's unwitting custodian. Among them was Anne Lockwood, Miriam's great-granddaughter, who sat quietly beside Ella during a tense congressional hearing discussing the photograph's historical ramifications. "I grew up believing our family's Civil War story was a quiet one," Anne admitted softly. "Now I wonder how much darkness we unknowingly guarded. Did my ancestors understand who stood among them in this mysterious 1863 group shot?" Ella, sensing Anne's distress, gently reassured her. "Perhaps your ancestors were as oblivious as everyone else. History hides its secrets deeply, and sometimes we're merely accidental keepers." In quiet moments, Ella reflected on the journey from dusty attic to historical revelation. The photograph had shattered myths, unveiled uncomfortable truths, and changed perceptions of America's most turbulent chapter. Yet even now, one haunting question lingered unanswered. How deeply had Booth infiltrated Union ranks in 1863, and what other unsettling secrets might remain hidden within the shadowy folds of history? Have you ever discovered something special? In an old attic or basement? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Catch you in the next one.